Iqbal Mohamed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's an honour to be able to speak in this debate today, and I want to pay tribute to all my honourable and right honourable friends who have contributed to this debate in a very powerful, moving, and many instances personal accounts. In the UK, the Holocaust Memorial Day, we remember the 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust, alongside the millions of people murdered under the Nazis' persecution of other groups, and in more recent genocides in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia, Darfur, and others who suffered atrocities since World War II. Yesterday I had the privilege of attending the Holocaust Memorial Day ceremony in PCH, and I heard the moving testimonies of Holocaust survivors Israel Ablez and Alfred Garwood. I won't be the only person in this house who was deeply moved by their testimonies, and those who listened to Radio 4 early in the week by the interview of 92-year-old Holocaust survivor Ivor Pearl, who was just 12 years old when forced into a cattle truck to Auschwitz, where he lost most of his family. What struck me about Ivor was how, despite everything he had seen and endured, he retained his capacity for love and his belief in the power of love. But I was also struck by a sense of pessimism about the future and his feeling that the world today increasingly resembled the world of the 1930s. And I'm sad to say, I share that concern. We have seen a growth across Europe of a politics that unashamedly demonizes minority communities and presents them as aliens in our midst, to such a degree that people become inured to their plight or ill treatment. The Holocaust shows us where this toxic combination can lead. The Nazis' attempt to rid Europe of what they saw as an alien presence in its midst did not happen overnight. They first had to dehumanize the Jews, depict them as an alien culture, subject them to anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that they were part of a global conspiracy to manipulate global events, and strip them of their citizenship rights. In his recent film, Occupied City, the director, Steve McQueen, shows how that unfolded in one city, Amsterdam, where the bulk of the Dutch Jewish population lived. His film chronicles the measures the Nazis took. They sacked all Jews from public sector jobs. They banned them from all public places, closed down all Jewish schools, forced Jews to wear a special badge to demarcate them from everybody else, prevented Jews from marrying non-Jews, subjected them to daily humiliation and physical abuse, and ultimately rounded up and deported every Jew they could find to death camps. The film chronicles the most tremendous heroism of ordinary Dutch people to resist these measures and show solidarity with their Jewish neighbours. But it also shows that anti-Semitism had taken seed in Dutch society. Years of anti-Semitic propaganda had rotted the foundations of their society, and many ordinary people collaborated in the persecution of the Jews and betrayed their neighbours. A Jewish community that numbered around 80,000 at the start of the Nazi occupation was reduced to 16,000 by the end of the occupation. And that picture was repeated in city after city after city across Europe. But these words do nothing to capture the sheer terror and horror of what experience must have been like for the many millions of people unfortunate enough to have experienced it. The generational trauma it has left in its wake resonates with every Jewish family to this day. The Holocaust embodies the reality of fascism in power. Unfortunately, those ideas at the core of fascist ideology, racist narratives wrapped up in ethno-nationalist fantasies, are on the rise. In Germany at present, we see the far-right ADF, a party with neo-Nazis in its ranks, on track to be comfortably the second largest party in the German parliament. In Austria, the far-right Freedom Party recently won a third of the popular vote with an election pledge to remigrate citizens with migrant heritage. A similar dynamic is well underway in France, Italy and other countries where the far-right have significant electoral footholds. These are not fascist parties of the classic type, but they are walking on that ground. And when members, I'm sorry to say, of this House demonize and talk about deporting immigrants, and the President of the United States commits to deporting millions of immigrant families, with the richest man in the world cheering him on while giving fascist salutes, it should send a shiver down everyone's spine. There is more than a whiff of 1930s in the air. The Holocaust Memorial Day also pays tribute to the genocides in Cambodia, Rwanda, Darfur and Bosnia. We've already heard from the member from Brigham Immingham and others about the genocide in Bosnia that resulted in over the death of 100,000 men, women and children, with 8,000 murdered in the Srebrenica massacre. I just want to pay tribute to the other genocides that are part of Holocaust Remembrance Day. The genocide in Cambodia in the 70s, where the Khmer Rouge sought to create a communist utopia, forcing urban populations into rural camps. Intellectuals, professionals, religious leaders, and ethnic minorities were targeted. Approximately 1.7 to 2 million people, about 25% of Cambodia's population, were killed through executions, starvations, and forced labor. In Rwanda in the 90s, over a span of 100 days, an estimated 800,000 to 1 million Tutsi and moderate Hutus were massacred. The genocide was fueled by deep ethnic tensions, propaganda, and political instability. And in Darfur, where the atrocities continue, government-backed militias have carried out mass killings, rape, and displacement in response to an uprising by rebel groups. The conflict is categorized by ethnic cleansing, with hundreds of thousands of people killed and millions displaced. Unfortunately, violence and instability continue in the region. There are more recent examples, like Myanmar and others, but I will continue. As we remember on this 80th anniversary, all those affected by the Holocaust and the Bosniaks killed in Srebrenica 30 years ago, as well as the victims of the genocide I've just mentioned. We should also remember all those who have suffered atrocities in approximately 285 distinct armed conflicts, or in their day-to-day lives since the end of the Second World War. And let us recommit to never allow the politics of hatred, racism and demonization that contributed to the awful reality of fascism take hold in our society ever again. In his interview, Ivor Pearl said that the world has not learned anything, gets repeated all over again. And he is right. I believe we have heard from across the House that we have failed to fulfill the promise of never again. Never again for every single human being that walks this planet. in 80 years. However, there is nothing stopping us from fulfilling it from now, for all people, of all nations, all abilities, of all faiths and none, and set an example for the people of our country and the wider world